Welcome back, everybody. This is our second episode of 2022, the Fan Bros Podcast. Last time we touched on the NFC, the conference, all the changes in the offseason, free agency, and the draft, and now we're going to go AFC.
Yeah, we're going to dive right into it, go right into the AFC East, break every division down, kind of how we did the other episode, cover all the new players, any additions, any moving pieces, and so we'll just go right into it. We got the Jets, first of all. But we want to start with the Zach Wilson news. Right now, it looks like he's going to be out potentially 4 weeks. Everyone thought it was maybe a partial ACL tear. Looks like it's just a meniscus type deal. But that kind of ruins the emergence of Garrett Wilson and Elijah Moore. What do you think about the Jets? What do you think about Breece Hall after the news?
Yeah, so, assuming it's 4 weeks, he would miss, 1 week tops? So
yeah, but
that's an aggressive timeline. It might be a little bit for him to warm up, but I'm not too worried about it. Mike White filled in okay last year. I'm not going to knock the position guys a lot for it just because it could be 1 week missed, and then I think that's not a really big enough deal to adjust your draft board.
Yeah, Breece Hall didn't get the starting snaps, so that's kind of a big deal because it's going to be a split. So I'm kind of avoiding that backfield, even though they have two nice running backs with Breece Hall and Michael Carter.
Yeah, Breece Hall's being taken pretty high. He should have the upper hand on the starting role, but yeah, it's a little iffy for me to look at him too high. But if I had to take one of those, for me it's Hall. How about you?
Yeah, I'm probably the same way.
Gotcha. And then at the receiver core, Elijah Moore, he looked great when he wasn't missing time last year. They draft Garrett Wilson, first round from Ohio State. So most of the targets should funnel through between these two guys. We'll touch more how we feel about them fantasy-wise coming up, but there's two talented players. The Jets should at least be better than they have been in recent years.
Yeah, let's go right into the next team, the Miami Dolphins. Now, they have a bunch of changes. They have a head coach change, which is kind of a big deal because he's an offensive guru. They're fully committed to Tua, and they brought in Tyreek and a bunch of running backs. How do you feel about those running backs, Greg? Get into them.
Man, so they pretty much overhauled the entire position group. They bring in Chase Edmonds, Raheem Mostert, and Sony Michel. On the surface, unless it's late rounds, I'm going to stay away from all of them just because it could be anybody. I would think Edmonds might be the safest because he provides a little bit of everything. But Mostert played for Mike McDaniels in San Fran. Sony Mitchell's probably had the most experience as a pure ball carrier. So I don't know. I'm maybe waiting to see if one of them gets hurt or something before I'm really interested there.
Yeah, that's the one that you kind of go after mid-season or after a couple weeks when you kind of see the snap count and kind of see how things are working out. I wouldn't even probably go into drafting any of those guys.
Yeah, but definitely not early.
Tyreek is still going pretty early. He's not going as early as he has in recent past. He's not with Patrick Mahomes, but he's still going pretty early. Another thing people are forgetting completely about the tight end, so it's slipping my mind right now.
Mike Gesicki.
Yeah. So he's kind of sleeping on the draft boards because there's a bunch of pieces in that new offense.
I think it's just, for him, he's always had big games, but then his final stat line, he doesn't score enough touchdowns. But, I still like him. He's a low tight end 1. I would take him if I'm waiting late in the drafts. And then, of course, Jalen Waddle's still there. So it'll be interesting to see between he and Tyreek who's the 1, who's the 2. I like both of them going into the year, though. I'm not too worried about it.
Moving right into the next one, the Patriots. They didn't do too much besides get rid of every offensive staff and go ahead and bring in a bunch of defensive-minded people to run their offense. It's kind of crazy, but I believe in Bill Belichick. They traded away N'Keal Harry, and they brought in Devontae Parker. And James White retired, which is fucking huge. He is a target vulture for everybody and has been for years. So how do you feel about that?
His loss directly correlates to maybe Ramondre Stevenson picking up kind of a more meaningful role. Damian Harris already was kind of listening to some trade rumors in the offseason. Stevenson's been pumped up. So it's good that White's gone because he was never somebody you wanted to roster anymore. But now maybe Stevenson or the receivers pick up those targets. So I wish him all the best, but I'm glad he's out of the picture. Now, receivers, I don't know who I want from them early. They still have Aguilar, who was the best one, but he might be moved out as well. So the passing game, again, it's not really that intriguing to me, but James White at least opens up targets for other players.
And quick note, people really slept on Hunter Henry, and he was kind of like the stable part of the offense almost like the entire year. He was getting like 50 yards or a touchdown or 50 yards and a touchdown like almost every week there at the end of the season. So that's something to kind of keep in the back of your mind. It's another little sleeper tight end, kind of like Gesicki.
And then just the running backs. I mean, Damian Harris scored a ton of touchdowns last year, looked great. There's a lot of talk about Stevenson. I'm not going to, freak out and not want to draft Damian Harris, but I don't think it's a sure thing that he's the touchdown machine he was last year. So just keep an eye on that. We'll keep you updated. And the Patriots are going to be interesting. I don't think they'll have a ton of great options. They'll probably have a bunch of decent ones. So it's an interesting system.
Moving right into the cream of the crop of the division, the Buffalo Bills. Not too much changed except kind of a lot. They got rid of Emmanuel Sanders and Cole Beasley, opening up the premier second spot in this offense to Gabe Davis, and he finished on a very high note in the regular season and definitely in the postseason. And they went out and drafted Dalvin Cook's little brother, James Cook, for the running back spot. They've really been lacking in the past couple years to find that running back that can catch and kind of run the ball. And so James Cook kind of fills that void. And also they snuck O.J. Howard away from the Bucs. So their offensive unit is going to be something to reckon with. Josh Allen is probably looking to maybe be QB1 overall this year.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see a whole lot of changing there. And the big one is Gabriel Davis. I think there's not a lot in the way between him and a huge season. I mean, it's always a lot to gamble on it, but he's being drafted kind of low compared to what should be his kind of target range. So I'm really high on Gabriel Davis. Dawson Knox, I like him as well. And, of course, Diggs. So I think it's a three-man show pass catching as far as value goes, but those three should be pretty strong.
Yep, I agree. Moving on to the AFC North, let's just go ahead and start with the Steelers because it's not too many fantasy options really behind Najee. They kept Najee, Big Ben's out. They draft Pickens, and they keep their quarterback carousel with all the original spices. They've got Mason Rudolph and another. Who's the other one in there right
Mitch
now?
Trubisky, who they brought in.
Mitch Trubisky.
Equally gross.
Equally, yeah. No wonder my brain shut it out.
I know.
So Claypool kind of takes a hit because Pickens looks like he's not a bitch-made cat, and that's kind of what Chase Claypool is. He's kind of like a little fuckboy. I don't know if you guys remember that play where he kind of threw the game last year, where he was trying to do stuff after the first down, point forward and shit. Pickens looked like he's a dog, so I'm kind of not on Claypool right now. How do you feel about Deontay, though? He's still a beast.
Yeah, I mean, Deontay Johnson, if the quarterback position was better, I would be all over him. But, I mean, my goodness, there's really nothing that's a certainty when it comes to passing here. So, Deontay's still the one that I'm actually looking for. Claypool, I mean, yeah, George Pickens out of Georgia looks like a big, physical, similar kind of guy. So they might just neutralize each other. It's really just Deontay Johnson for me right now that I would look to pick.
Yeah, and of course, Najee being a volume RB1, which he did in his rookie year, so you can almost guarantee that he's going to do that for the next at least 2 years for.
And they were really bad with Big Ben, so I mean, I don't think they really downgrade here, but I don't think they necessarily get great either. So yeah, I mean, Najee more of the same, Deontay Johnson, but just keep an eye on George Pickens, a second-round pick from Georgia. He might surpass Claypool early on.
And I want to touch on another sleeper tight end, Pat Freiermuth. Nobody's really talking about him, but I don't know if there's enough for him to go around, even though he's literally, a Pro Bowl type player. I don't think there's enough meat on the bone in this offense for him to eat as well. So just
but he's somebody to keep an eye on.
Yeah, so you definitely watch and stash. If you kind of have a risky tight end, let's say you grab Njoku or something, and you want something else as well, grab some Freiermuth. He'll be down there as well.
I did forget about Freiermuth. Yeah, he's a good player. Like you said, he's probably not going to be drafted, but definitely keep an eye on him. He could emerge.
Yep. Let's go right into the Browns, talking about David Njoku. So Deshaun, the news is the NFL is countering the ruling. They want double-digit games, so it's probably going to be at least 10 games or the full season which sounds crazy right now because there's only a 6-game suspension. We're just talking hypotheticals, but the NFL does not play any fucking games. So saying that, Amari Cooper is their new wide receiver 1. Kind of canceled out if Deshaun doesn't play, just because Jacoby isn't probably going to be enough to feed him where his ADP is going to be at. But other than that, the running backs should feast. They still have Kareem Hunt. They still have Nick Chubb. So they should just absolutely be a slaughter fest. What do you think?
Yeah, and you've said David Njoku. They brought him back on a big money deal, so they're kind of committed to him. And I think he's always been somebody with a better quarterback, could produce, but he might have to wait a year. Yeah, Deshaun is so up in the air, but he might be somebody to take. You know, if I'm looking at him and Gesicki, I could go Njoku in that situation. So late tight end 1, don't forget about him, especially if Deshaun only gets to 6 games. Then I think he's a player in the second half. But yeah, I mean, Amari Cooper, good player. I'm not going to really go after him. I think his ADP will slide back, but he's still probably a solid 3 with upside later in the year, but he's not going to be what he was in Dallas to start the season. No way.
Yeah, and something to touch, we'll kind of go into it deeper, but Austin Hooper is no longer on that team. If you kind of think about the Browns the past 2 years, is what kind of cucked all the fantasy owners, is that they were, just kind of like a tight end rotation, but there was a lot of tight end work. So now with David Njoku being paid, that could be kind of a sneaky little play that gets a lot of targets this year in this offense.
You're right. I didn't think about Hooper, but yeah, I mean, the job is there for Njoku. It's just, can the quarterback get it to him?
All right, moving on to the next team. We got the Ravens, which kind of had some moves, nothing too crazy. J.K. Dobbins should be back for week 1 of the regular season. Gus the Bus Edwards is questionable. They're projecting him to be back around week 4. We'll see about all that. But other than that, they shipped out Marquise Brown, kind of giving the role to Bateman and
the master.
Mark Andrews. Oh, Master. Yeah, sorry, Master Bateman.
Yep. So, and Mark Andrews, right. There was you were talking about some tight end that's getting a little bit of love there. Do you remember who that guy is? And do you think he makes an impact
Isaiah,
or no?
I definitely do. Isaiah Likely, he's got a bunch of camp hype, and he was snagging on all of the ones when he was in there. So that's something to monitor, because they really do want to do 2 tight ends, a fullback tight end. That's what the Ravens are really into. Now they've doubled down. Their backup quarterback is almost a replica of Lamar Jackson. So it's not like, they have this offense that they're catering to Lamar. They've built the offense around Lamar. So his run attack, I do see Isaiah Likely potentially being a nice handcuff to Mark Andrews, if anything, and maybe a playable option, because they really don't have any other receivers outside of Bateman, if we're being honest.
That's right. And Andrews. Yeah, their offense, I mean, with Hollywood Brown gone, it's hard to see them being as explosive passing, but maybe, Mark Andrews is already great. Maybe Bateman steps up, or maybe the running backs get more involved. So we'll have to see. Lamar, he's going to be earning his dollars now. He wants a new contract, and he's going to earn it, because he doesn't have a ton of weapons through the air.
Yeah, he's going to earn every penny. Moving into the supreme team of the division, I didn't think you'd say that probably 2 years ago, but the Bengals. So, welcome to the jungle. How do you feel about them? They're basically the identical same team, except they got some O-line help. Now we can dive into the names. Joe Mixon, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase. How do you feel about them?
Man, it really couldn't have been better for them, because nothing changes except for possibly a better O-line. So what you see is what you're probably going to get, which is 2 stud receivers. And Joe Mixon, he came on strong at the end. He's been disappointing, but he looks good as well. So the Bengals and Joe Burrow should be a maybe top half QB1. I like what I see from the Bengals. It's rare in fantasy that things don't change a lot, but we know what we're getting with those guys, and we like it. So draft those guys pretty freely.
You have kind of talked about this off air about how I personally think that Jamar Chase and T. Higgins probably have substantially better years this year, even though they kind of had the breakout year last year, and they're going to get double coverage and focused on defense. But because the chemistry between Joe and them is just going to get better, they really haven't even played that many games together, if you're thinking about it. So I think that those guys are I think Jamar Chase is worth his ADP, and I think T. Higgins right now is really worth his ADP. That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, no, that should be a fantasy gold mine. It's just a matter of if they're taken super high because they're probably going to be among the top in their position groups.
All right, moving on to the AFC South. You want to hit the home team first, Greg?
I will. So the Houston Texans, not a ton changes there. They did draft a running back from Florida, Dameon Pierce, and he's been getting rave reviews. Last night in the preseason game, he popped off like 5 for damn near 50 yards. So he might be somebody to look at because they brought in Marlon Mack. I'm not sold on that being a factor. Rex Burkhead was a guy last year. But, I mean, if there's clarity in that backfield and it's Dameon Pierce, that's another startable fantasy asset. So keep an eye on him as we lead up to the season. He's somebody who might be sneaky good going on. And then Davis Mills, you can't say he's going to be great, but he was getting hot at the end of last year. He should be closer to that than he was at the beginning of the year. So Brandon Cooks looks good. And a second wide receiver, John Mechie's going to miss the year. He has a form of leukemia, I believe it is. He's more than likely going to miss years, so just keep an eye out on the second receivers there. I mean, we still have what's the big guy from Michigan? Nico Collins.
Nico Collins.
Do you think he's somebody to look at late in the draft or not yet?
Yeah, I do. They've been hyping him up, and evidently Andre Johnson, somehow Lovey, even though Bill O'Brien did him so dirty and all that stuff, Lovey kind of brought Andre Johnson back into the fold of the organization, and he's been monitoring him and talking to him on the sidelines almost like every practice that Andre has been there, like kind of been mentoring him and whatnot. So I like Nico's jump this year. I believe the training camp hype. It just depends on if Davis Mills does stay kind of hot like he finished the year, like you said. That should be the norm. Him kind of ripping off 300 yards a game, maybe 2 tutties. But we'll see. If that's the norm, then Nico could definitely be rosterable.
So at least keep an eye on him. But yeah, the Texans should be better than they were for most of last year. Maybe not world beaters, but the quarterback looks to be at least average. So, you got to like that.
Let's go into the Jaguars. So this is a big mix-up. Robinson, I think he popped his Achilles last year. James Robinson, the freak show running back. He popped his Achilles, but not before Travis Etienne started the year off tearing his ACL. Correct me if I'm wrong, Greg. I think
it was a foot. It was a broken foot of some sort, but he missed the whole year.
Right. So Etienne is back completely healthy and looks juiced to the gills. He is fucking exploding everywhere, and pre-games and camp footage and the preseason games. He's everywhere. So James Robinson kind of is in the background, but not really right now. So it looks like it's going to be Etienne's show, and they went out and paid Christian Kirk a fat bag to probably catch about 80 balls this year. So how do you feel about the Jags?
I mean, I think they're better. Like you said, Etienne intrigues me. James Robinson still, he's recovering better than people thought, so I'm not going to maybe go all out for Etienne. But I like him. Trevor Lawrence should be better. I mean, he's a really talented guy. Urban Meyer really fucked that team. And then Christian Kirk, he actually intrigues me, but it would be more as a wide receiver 3 and stuff. But I think they might provide some value where last year it was just the running back position.
Yeah, definitely. I'm very high on Etienne right now. I think that could be a very sneaky RB2, maybe RB1 volume type player you get kind of later in the draft.
In PPR, he's got extra value. He should catch a lot of balls. That's a strength of his.
Yeah. Moving on to the Titans. So the Titans had a kind of one of the bigger mix-ups. Eric Henry's coming back off the broken foot. He should be good, but they went out and drafted Hassan Hedrick or something, a very good running back from Michigan, 1,000-yard rusher. So they have a legitimate backup running back now. He's a rookie, but he's legitimate. They went out and they go get Bobby Trees. They have Robert Woods, and they trade A.J. Brown and bring in Treylon Burks. So how do you feel about that? Treylon Burks could fill that role on paper immediately, but we all know that that's not, possible right off the bat.
Yeah, so, I mean, I'll just touch on the running back situation. Keep an eye on the guy from Michigan. Yeah, his last name blanks me right now, Hassan something, but he might be a pure handcuff. And that's a guy like Derrick Henry, you want to know who is the handcuff. So just keep an eye on that. We'll fill it in as draft approaches. We'll
Hassan
probably go
Haskins.
over the handcuffs. Hassan Haskins, that's it. So we might have a clear handcuff, which would make it valuable to the D. Henry owner. But pass catchers, Treylon Burks, it was an Arkansas receiver who did everything for them. He was kind of A.J. Brown-esque, just a physical specimen. The early returns in the offseason haven't been super positive, but I will say last year Jamar Chase was catching a bunch of bad rap as well, and then he went on a show. So I like Treylon Burks versus Robert Woods, personally. I see big upside in him. That intrigues me. But I don't think either of those guys will quite be A.J. Brown. So the pass catchers in Tennessee, probably not super attractive until later in the draft.
Yeah, I agree with that. Moving on to the Colts. So the Colts are kind of funny. They had a great year last year. They look like they were going to make the playoffs and actually kind of raise some hell. And then Carson Wentz realized that he's a fucking soulless ginger and just ate shit the last 2 games.
Tragic.
And they shipped him out. Yeah, they shipped him out and they brought in Matty Ice. They have Matt Ryan and basically kind of a little revamped offense now. So how do you feel about all the pieces? Michael Pittman, Jonathan Taylor. How do you feel about that now?
Yeah, I feel really good about those 2 guys. I mean, Jonathan Taylor, there's probably some touchdown regression, but there's nothing to suggest he won't be a lock for a top 5 running back if he's healthy. So that shouldn't change. And yeah, Matt Ryan, I think he was not been great, but I think he is a slight uptick in the passing game. So I do like Pittman. As far as the tight ends go, I mean, who do they have? Is it Mo Alley Cox? Is Doyle still there?
No, Doyle's gone. They have Mo Alley Cox, and I think they brought in one other guy, but yeah, it's really just Mo Alley Cox, and they never even use him week to week.
And then I guess other receivers, right? There's Paris Campbell that always gets hyped up a little in the offseason, but I think it's going to really be another run-heavy one. But I think Michael Pittman, the arrow's pointing up with Matt Ryan.
And Matt Ryan loves to check down, and we probably see a lot of Naomi Hines out of the slot, and he probably will have just a bigger role this year overall after Jonathan Taylor's crazy season last year. Not saying Jonathan Taylor's not going to be an RB1, but I think that just Matt Ryan being who Matt Ryan is, I think Naeem Hines is going to have a nice little role this year. He could definitely be a draftable piece, even if you don't have Jonathan Taylor as your RB1.
That is a good point. I mean, if they're going to throw the ball sometimes, and it's got to go somewhere. So yeah, Hines might be what he was previously in those couple seasons where he was a kind of spot starter type of guy. That's a good point.
Moving on to the what the fuck happened division in the AFC West. So this division overnight became insane. So let's start off with, I guess, we'll go Raiders. So Raiders get a new head coach. They get McDaniels, so they have an offensive guru type in the building now. They go out and they get Devontae Adams. They pay Hunter Renfrow, and they have Darren Waller still and Josh Jacobs. So how do you feel about that, There's a lot of pieces now, so it's almost like you don't know what you want outside of the primo guys like Waller and Adams. So how do you feel?
Yeah, this is one of the bigger question marks because, I mean, Devontae Adams steps in. He's going to be great, but where do I kind of like him draft-wise? I'm not really sure. And I don't know what this does to Renfrow. He could be the big loser, even though they've committed to him and he's shown value. It's just, Waller, if he's healthy, he's going to be great. Devontae's going to be great. Renfrow is a question mark for me. He really is. But that being said, with McDaniels as a coach, if Derek Carr's actually not terrible, he's really been in that purgatory. But if he takes a step up, all 3 of those guys might be productive, and that would be great for fantasy. Get the Raiders have actually skilled players that we want.
I'm in the same boat as you. I think that he can make a leap. He's had very shitty offensive coordinators, in my opinion, Derek, and very shitty head coaches to be, a quarterback. But I'm actually kind of tripping on Josh Jacobs just because I do believe McDaniels is smarter than the rest of the, Patriots lineage where he just wants to go out and try to replicate, Bill Belichick's system because that never works. As Texans, we fucking know that. But I do think that he's going to be running back by committee because he was the offensive coordinator. So all those years that we didn't know who the fuck to start week to week, that he was kind of behind all that. They have Amir Abdullah right now. They have 2 other running backs, and Amir Abdullah was playing with the ones, and they made Josh Jacobs play the first 3 drives. So It's kind of weird because I would view Josh Jacobs as the surefire, don't even need to play him, running back one of the team. But they gave him like 3 series in the Hall of Fame game. So how do you feel about that on the vibe check on that?
I'm trying not to overreact, but that is a big deal. The first preseason game, and he's out there starting, getting carries. So that tells me they don't think,
Hall of Fame game.
It's
Hall
not,
of Fame game.
oh, you're right. It was not even
Wasn't
week
even
one.
the fucking preseason, bro. It's a Hall of Fame game.
So that doesn't tell me that that's a guy they're counting on to be their workhorse. That's just what maybe McDaniels wants to see it in person, right? He's a new guy looking to fill out. So I think the arrow's down on Josh Jacobs. Does that mean he's not an RB2? No, but yeah, I mean his clock's running up to show something special, and I'm not going to be all over him this year.
Exactly. And he's kind of in that tier where you don't want to risk it, because if he is just the RB1 volume kind of guy again that he was probably about 2 years ago when I had him, then it's awesome. It's going to pay off. You're going to pay for about an RB2 that turns out to be an RB1. But if it's a carry system and they have a mirror and this, that, the other, and then I don't know, man. I kind of want to stay away from that one, and it's like a ticking grenade. Let your league mates eat that one.
Now, I will say, if he's dropping just crazy late, I think there's a scenario where the Raiders are pretty damn good on offense, and then he's the touchdown style back. So I'm not saying there's no chance. It's just something to keep an eye on. But yeah, overall, 3rd, 4th round where he used to be drafted, I don't think that's it anymore.
Broncos country. Let's ride. Let's go right into the Broncos.
Oh,
so
God.
They go out and they trade for Russ the bus. They got Russell Wilson in there, and he's already making slang. He's taking over the whole thing, just being a fucking a walking meme. But he's in there, so they have a crazy offensive staff. We talked about it last year. Is if they traded for a quarterback last year, that they would be insane. They have good wide receiver depth. They got good running backs. They had a decent O-line. And so they went out and they got Russell. So you have Cortland Sutton. Oh my gosh, KJ Hamler.
Big Booty Judy.
Big Booty Judy. It was slipping my mind. Big Booty Judy. And you have Albert. We'll call him Albert O. That really good tight end that has a crazy
Abu-Kaham or some shit like that. I have no idea.
We're too white. We're not going to disrespect culture on this podcast, trying to get that out there. But they have Javonte and Melvin Gordon. So they're going to have offense out of the fucking gills. They might outscore everybody by about 20 points because the Seahawks really never even threw the ball. So I think if Russell is with the coordinator from the Packers that was kind of with Aaron Rodgers, I think they might just be airing it out on everybody in sight.
Yeah, the Broncos are the biggest change overnight because they go from just a horrendous situation at quarterback to one of the better ones. So it'll be really interesting to see. Now, when this happens, you don't know who their guy is, right? The receivers, Jerry Jeudy or Cortland Sutton. There's probably going to be a 1A and a 1B, but they're both drafted around the same because people aren't really sure. So I think you just got to pick your poison there. I don't have a good read. But either way, both of those guys will be rosterable where they were kind of not that good last year. So big stock up for Sutton and Jerry Jeudy. The running back position is interesting because Javonte Williams looked fantastic. As good as any rookie last year with limited touches and still finished top 15, maybe top 10 if I'm not mistaken. But Melvin Gordon is just a thorn in the side. They tried to split it early and often. Javonte's being drafted as though he'll separate. Do you think that happens early in the season?
I don't know, man. Melvin.
He should.
He should. He definitely should. But Melvin Gordon, every time you doubt Melvin Gordon, he goes out and shows that he's kind of a freak of nature. So I want to be all in on Javonte. Trust me, because that's RB1. Then that's a nice offense. He's be getting touchdowns all the time. But I just can't fully commit because Melvin Gordon's healthy and they kept him there for a reason. So, you know what I mean? They could have let him go and just fully commit to Javonte, find a trade partner because people would have, done at least a back-end style trade for him. But they didn't, so they kept him. So I want to commit to Javonte, but I can't. So I'm kind of letting it play out. I'm more leaning towards drafting Javonte, even though the ADP doesn't match maybe the workload. I really don't want to be that Melvin Gordon owner because I think that he gets the 40-60 out of the deal and not the 60-40. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Javonte, when we're looking at like RB1s, he's the real make or break. Like, he's the big risk, big reward guy this year. He's a league winner if he takes over. He is that good. But you could be frustrated with the 50-50 split, so that'll be a little risky one, at the back end of the second, early third. But, I mean, the team should be really talented, should be a lot more touchdowns to go around, so I like the Broncos skill guys.
All right, that about wrap it up for the Broncos.
Got two teams left, right?
Yeah. So we'll hop right into the Chiefs. Now, The Chiefs kind of switch it up a little bit. They trade Tyreek Hill away, which was insane. Nobody thought they were going to do that. They trade Tyreek Hill away. They still have Travis Kelce, and they bring in Juju Shoe-Smith. I can't even say it. You fucking say it, bro.
Smith-Schuster. That's how forgettable he's been lately. Shame on you, Juju.
Exactly. It's not even anything to do with me. It's all you, Juju. They bring in MVS, and they still have Mecole Hardman. So they have some options there, but it's really going to be Travis Kelce and Juju. And you'd think it's going to be Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but let's go ahead and talk about that rookie.
So they did bring in Ronald Jones in the offseason. They still have Jerick McKinnon. But somebody who's been getting a lot of attention in training camp and from the beat writers and all that stuff is Isaiah Pacheco. He's a 7th rounder from, I think, Rutgers. Does that sound right?
Yeah, he's from Rutgers.
So, I mean, this happens every offseason. There's a couple low-ended guys that look great. But it's interesting because Clyde has never really taken that job. He's had the opportunity, and he's always been just meh with it. So a guy named Isaiah Pacheco might be somebody to keep an eye on late in drafts because he's getting a lot of credit in Kansas City. He catches the ball well, and with so many new faces in the pass catching core, I think a running back of theirs is gonna emerge, and we're not really sure who it is. So it's a different team. Patrick Mahomes should be good, but just kind of figure out which running back and which receiver like Juju or MVS do you like, and then keep an eye on them late, and you might be able to get them.
And that 4.37 at the combine, so
that's the Pacheco guy. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, Pacheco. So yeah.
Clyde better get it together. Or he's going to be a second or third stringer.
All right, and that leaves us to the premier of the division, the Chargers. The Chargers, they signed Mike Williams back. They keep Keenan Allen. They still have Austin Eckler, but they go out on defense. They make a powerhouse, so they look to potentially have the ball on offense than most teams in the league almost. How do you feel about the Chargers?
Yeah, I think their defense is pointing up, and what I like about the offense is it's the same guys, and it really was 1, 2, 3. Everything went through them. Eckler scored 20 touchdowns. Mike Williams was super hot early, faded late, and then came back. And Keenan's really strong. So I think it's another 3-headed monster. All are going to be great for your team. An interesting thing, they drafted Isaiah Spiller, running back from Texas A&M. And he might not have standalone value, but Justin Jackson's gone. So we might have a clear backup. I think when Eckler missed some time previously, it was a kind of committee. But keep an eye on Spiller. He looks good. He might be a true handcuff with even a chance to kind of eat into Eckler a little. So that's something to weigh with Eckler. They have a little more capable backup. But overall, the Chargers skill players, I think, are going to be terrific.
Yeah, and that about wraps it up for this podcast. This is kind of the basics. Just kind of the general consensus right now. And in this next week and a half, we're going to dive kind of more in depth into skill positions, ADPs, where we like players, sleepers, the meta of this year's draft, things of that nature.
That's right. So we didn't want you to not know about player X, player Y on a new team because it's a lot to keep up with. Now that you're completely caught up, it's draft prep season. So we're going to be churning out a bunch, get you ready for the draft, and we're excited to be back. Hope you join us next time.
Peace.